Hello, my friends. Thanks for joining me today with another read along. Today, we are going to be reading Daniel chapter 3. We're going to be reading about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abed-Nego. But I do encourage you to go back to chapter 1 and 2 so you're going to read the beginning of this story. It's very interesting. And the name Shadrach and Meshach and Abed-Nego is not their real names. It was given to them by King Nebuchadnezzar. With that being said, I would like to say thank you for joining me with the other read-alongs. If you haven't read along with us these other stories that I have read, the virtuous wife, Elijah prayed and asked God to strike the army with blindness, the Valley of Dry Bones, and there's more. So if you haven't read those stories, I do encourage you to go back and read along with me. And if you have anything that you want us to read together, put it in the comments below and we will read it. So do you have your Bible? Okay. If you have it, let's get started. But before I get started, let me say I do have a New King James Version Bible. That's the Bible I'm reading from. Even if you don't have the New King James Version Bible, just read along with me with whatever Bible that you may have. It may read a little different, but the meaning is still the same. Let me push my book up so we can get started with the reading. We're going to read Daniel chapter 3. Okay. Are you ready? Let's get started. Nebuchadnezzar the king made an image of gold whose height was 60 cubits and its width 6 cubits. He set it up in the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. And King Nebuchadnezzar sent word to gather together the satraps, the administrators, the governors, the counselors, the treasurers, the judges, the magistrates, and all the officials of the province to come to the dedication of the image which King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. So the satraps, the administrator, the governors, the counselors, the treasurers, the judges, the magistrates, and all the officials of the province gathered together for the dedication of the image that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. They stood before the image that Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Then a herald cried out to you, "It is commanded, O people, nations, and language, that at the time you hear the sound of the horn, the flute, harp, the lyre, and psaltery and symphony, with all kinds of music, you shall fall down and worship the gold image that King Nebuchadnezzar has set up. And whoever does not fall down and worship shall be cast immediately into the midst of a burning fiery furnace." So at that time, when all the people heard the sound of the horn, flute, harp, and lyre in symphony with all kinds of music, all the people, nation, and language fell down and worshiped the gold image which King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Therefore, at that time, certain Chaldeans came forward and accused the Jews. They spoke and said to King Nebuchadnezzar, "O king, live forever. You, O king, have made a decree that everyone who hears the sound of the horn, flute, the harp, the lyre, and psaltery and symphony with all kinds of music shall fall down and worship the golden image. And whoever does not fall down and worship shall be cast into the midst of a burning fiery furnace. There are certain Jews whom you have set over the affairs of the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abed-Nego. These men, king, have not paid due regard to you. They do not serve your God or worship the gold image which you have set up." Then King Nebuchadnezzar, in rage and fury, gave the command to bring Shadrach, Meshach, and Abed-Nego. So they brought these men before the king. Nebuchadnezzar spoke, saying to them, "Is it true, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abed-Nego, that you do not serve my God or worship the gold image which I have set up? Now, if you are ready at the time you hear the sound of the horn, flute, harp, and lyre, and psaltery, and symphony, with all kinds of music, and you fall down and worship the image which I have made good. But if you do not worship, you shall be cast immediately into the midst of a burning fiery furnace. And who is the God who will deliver you from my hands? Shadrach, Meshach, and Abed-Nego answered and said to the king, O Nebuchadnezzar, we have no need to answer you in this matter. If this is the case, our God, whom we serve, is able to deliver us from the fiery furnace, and he will deliver us from your hand, O king. But if not, let it be known to you, O king, that we do not serve your gods, nor will we worship the golden image which you have set up. That's powerful. Then King Nebuchadnezzar was full of fury, and the expression on his face changed towards Shadrach, Meshach, and Abed-Nego. He spoke and commanded that they heat the furnace 7 times more than it was usually heated. And he commanded certain mighty men of valor who were in his army to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abed-Nego and cast them into the fiery furnace. Then these men were bound in their coats, their trousers, their turbans, and their other garments, and were cast into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. Therefore, because the king's command was urgent and the furnace exceedingly hot, the flame of the fire killed those men who took up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abed-Nego. And these 3 men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abed-Nego, fell down, bound into the midst of the fiery furnace. Then King Nebuchadnezzar was astonished, and he rose in haste and spoke, saying to his counselors, Did we not cast 3 men bound into the midst of the fire? They answered and said to the king, True, O king. Look, he answered, I see 4 men loose, walking in the midst of the fire, and they are not hurt. And the form of the 4th is like the Son of God. Then Nebuchadnezzar went near the mouth of the burning fiery furnace and spoke, saying, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abed-Nego, servants of the Most High God, come out, come here. Then Shadrach, Meshach, and Abed-Nego came from the midst of the fire. And the satraps, administrators, governors, and the king counselors gathered together, and they saw these men on whose bodies the fire had no power. The hair of their head was not singed, nor were their garment affected, and the smell of fire was not on them. Nebuchadnezzar spoke, saying, Blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abed-Nego, who sent his angel and delivered his servants who trusted in him. And they have frustrated the king's words and yield their bodies, that they should not serve nor worship any god except their own. Therefore, I make a decree that any people, nation, or language which speaks anything amiss against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abed-Nego shall be cut in pieces, and their houses shall be made an ash heap, because there is no other God who can deliver like this. Then the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abed-Nego in the province of Babylon. Wow, this is a powerful story, and I do advise you to go back and reread the story, and I do encourage you to go back to chapter 1 and 2 and read the full story of this. This was just an incident where King Nebuchadnezzar wanted them to bow down to a golden image, and Shadrach and Meshach knew that God said in his word that we shall not put no other God before them, and that's the principle they stood by. They told him, even if God do not deliver us, O king, we will not worship you. worship that golden image, and that's powerful. But I want to go back to Daniel's chapter 1, verse 7. I'm just going to show you that their names were changed. This is Daniel 1, and we're going to read verse 7. To them, the chief of the eunuchs gave names. He gave Daniel the name of Belshazzar. To Hananiah, he gave Shadrach. To Mishael, he gave Meshach. And to Azariah, Abed-Nego. So these are the names. These are their original name, given names. But these, I will just show you the names that how their names were changed. So that's not their original name. So these are their birth given names that I just read, Daniel 1 verse 7. But the names were changed when they went in the they went to serve, or they was recruited basically to serve King Nebuchadnezzar. But like I was saying, if you go back and read chapter 1 and 2, you can get the full story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and Daniel. Daniel wasn't mentioned in that particular story, but if you keep on reading, Daniel was mentioned. I think he was thrown into the lion's den further chapter, a couple of chapters down. So the book of Daniel is it's a good chapter to read. It's a very nice chapter. And I advise you, when you have time, just take your time, read a chapter at a time. Maybe a day. We read a chapter a day or before you go to bed. And it's an interest read. You can learn a lot from what happened way back in the biblical times up until now. Just like Shadrach and Meshach, they trust in the Lord. They said whatever happened, they still going to trust in him. And that's just like today. Some things we got to say, I'm not going to do. We got to stand our ground. We're not going to do it. I'm just going to trust in the Lord. Whatever happens, it's happened, because I'm going to put my trust and my faith in the Lord. So with that being said, I like to say thank you for joining me today with this read along, and I'll be back next week with another read along. And if it's anything that you want to read, put it in the comments below and we will read it together. So you have a great day today. Be blessed, be safe, and be a blessing. God bless you.